In this episode, we look into the dark depths of evil. What do tyrants think and feel? How are they different from the average person? We look first at the dark triad of traits which characterize such individuals, as well as the more encompassing list of traits known as the dark factor of personality, or D factor for short. Then we conclude with a look inside the mind of the people who follow and enable such tyrants. A dictator is another name for an autocrat, a leader with unlimited governmental power. There have been what some might call a few benevolent dictators, but the vast majority of them are evil. These oppressive dictators are called tyrants or despots. They use intimidation, repression, imprisonment, torture, and murder to maintain and wield their power. Many dictators have what are called the dark triad: malignant narcissism, psychopathy, and paranoia. Narcissism is an extreme interest in oneself. It becomes malignant, or what is called narcissistic personality disorder, when an individual has an unusually high sense of their own importance, constantly desiring the admiration of others, but with an underlying low self-esteem. Psychopathy is a neuropsychiatric disorder marked by a lack of empathy and other emotional responses, along with antisocial and criminal behavior. They are manipulative and have little in the way of conscience or remorse. Paranoia involves feelings of anxiety, suspicion, and fear. A paranoiac feels as if he is being persecuted and has a general distrust of others. Hitler and Mussolini show signs of the dark triad, demonstrating self-absorption and believing they were chosen to lead their people to greatness. They felt little sympathy for others, but were able to rally millions to their side. This shows their ability to understand and manipulate others for their own gain, which is an underlying symptom of psychopathy. Psychopathy and sociopathy are both considered part of antisocial personality disorder, but there are differences, as this short clip shows.
Hey Psych2Goers, when you hear the terms psychopath and sociopath, what comes to mind? Some people might think of people who commit violent acts with no remorse. While this can be true in some cases, this does not reflect everyone with the conditions. So with that said, here are 5 ways to tell sociopaths and psychopaths apart and how they're diagnosed. Let's start with how a psychopath or sociopath is diagnosed. While psychologists agree that sociopaths and psychopaths are different from one another, they are actually given the same diagnosis, as both exist under the term antisocial personality disorder. ASPD is a condition characterized as a lack of empathy and disregard towards laws and rules. It's also important to know that antisocial refers to harmful behaviors towards other people. It's not the same as asocial, which is classified by introversion. Generally, people with ASPD will exhibit disregard for the feelings of others, disregard to the laws and rules, no remorse after hurting others, aggression, and dangerous behaviors. The difference lies in how these symptoms are portrayed. Some psychologists argue that psychopathy is a more severe form of ASPD, while others think that it is something completely different. Sociopaths don't care about others, while psychopaths pretend to. Sociopaths tend to make it clear that they don't care about the needs of others. Because of this, they may have extremely unstable and abusive relationships. Psychopaths, on the other hand, can be much more difficult to spot. They tend to blend in well with the people around them and can fake their emotions to avoid drawing attention. Because of this, psychopaths may appear completely normal, sometimes so much so that they have long-lasting relationships and families unaware of their condition. Sociopaths are impulsive, while psychopaths tend to be methodical. Generally, sociopaths may have a difficult time controlling their emotions and lash out in explosive outbursts in a short period of time. They may carry out violent acts and crimes quickly and in the heat of the moment. Psychopaths, on the other hand, tend to be much more calculated and thoughtful in their approach. They may come up with elaborate plans to commit horrible acts and do so without drawing too much attention. Sociopaths are generally a product of their environment, while psychopaths are born that way. Nature versus nurture is used to describe whether a person's behavior is a product of genetics or how they were raised. Typically, it is believed that sociopaths develop as a result of trauma and neglect throughout childhood. Psychopaths, on the other hand, are believed to develop as a result of genetics and less so from how they grew up. Simply put, sociopathy is believed to be learned and psychopathy is inherited. Sociopaths can feel empathy in certain situations, while psychopaths cannot. Some psychologists believe that sociopaths can feel empathy towards others in certain situations due to the learned nature of their condition. However, this can be inconsistent and may only be present in specific, isolated instances. Some would argue that sociopaths have a sense of right and wrong, just a weak one. Psychopaths, on the other hand, may not be able to feel empathy in any context and usually have no concept of right and wrong. Sociopaths tend to be unstable, while psychopaths are stable. It can be easier to spot someone who is a sociopath due to the impulsive and aggressive nature that they tend to display. Their behavior may be bold and show itself in their chaotic relationships. As psychopaths are more methodical and calculated, they show fewer signs of abnormality. They can also be extremely manipulative and charming, which fools people into thinking that everything is ordinary, while sociopaths tend to live on the fringe and avoid education. Psychopaths may become highly successful in their fields. While psychopaths can develop mood disorders like depression, they tend to have a high level of control over their emotions. So, did this video shed some light on the differences between sociopaths and psychopaths? Psychopaths and sociopaths are similar, but are not the same, with many contrasting personality traits. It is important to know that anyone with any kind of ASPD is capable of receiving treatment, and receiving the proper help can make a difference. Let us know what you thought on this topic in the comments. Please like and share it with friends that might find insight in this video too. Make sure to subscribe to Psych2Go and hit the notification bell for more content. All the references used are added in the description box below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Recent research has suggested a larger collection of personality traits that can be found in tyrants. These are known as the dark factor of personality, or D factor. A person who scores high on the D factor scale will predominate on one of these traits, but exhibits most of them in common. A number of these are listed and illustrated in what follows with some examples. Egoism is extreme self-interest to the point where one favors yes men over those who disagree. Tyrants are notorious for silencing those who oppose them and for surrounding themselves with yes men type loyalists. In Machiavellianism, we have the use of lying, manipulation, and exploitation of others. Tyrants like to use propaganda to deceive their followers and control them. Xi Jinping in China has been a master at using digital means to control his countrymen and take over the Chinese Communist Party. In moral disengagement, we have the ability to think that normal ethical rules do not apply. Tyrants frequently commit murder and genocide without taking any responsibility for their horrific actions. In psychological entitlement, we have the belief that a tyrant or his followers are entitled to and deserve better treatment than other people. Most tyrants favor their own tribally defined group as superior and thus more deserving than others. Examples of such divisions that have been exploited by tyrants include the Hutus versus the Tutsis, whites versus Hispanics, and Christians versus Jews or Arabs. In sadism, we have an intentional infliction of pain on others in order to achieve pleasure or dominance. Stalin had many of his opposition tortured, murdered, or sent to the Gulag. And then finally, in spitefulness, we see a willingness to hurt another person, even though it might result in one's own self-harm. A tyrant or criminal, for instance, might attack someone even though they themselves might be caught or discovered. It is sad, but many of the dark triad and D factor traits help dictators to gain and maintain political power and to organize a faithful military and secret police force. These characteristics help the dictator to rally people to their cause, probably because many mistake this personality for strength and want a fearless and decisive leader. We have seen that the conservative personality type in particular is more fearful of threats and favors strong leaders and hierarchical power structures. Other people may support such a leader because they have some of these traits themselves. Yet others may follow him because of the appeal to nationalism, populism, scapegoating, and fear of other opposing groups, what is the ever-present us versus them attitude. This is especially true during times of instability and polarization. In contemporary times, the recent COVID pandemic, downturns in the economy, and ecological crises make fertile ground for the seeds of tyranny. Dictators, although small in numbers, have a greater chance of succeeding because of their enablers. It is their supporters that vote them into power, join their party, and execute their orders. To give two contemporary examples, Donald Trump raised working-class American fear of Latino immigrants, while Vladimir Putin makes Russians fear Europe and the West. Why is it that dictators so often succeed in exaggerating the threats posed by others? Clay Rutledge lists 4 characteristics of authoritarians that make them susceptible to fears of the other. The first of these is self-esteem, and it involves viewing other people as inferior, which makes racist or prejudiced individuals feel better about themselves. Second is positive distinctiveness. When people think their group is superior, they also feel the same way. This is a type of group-level self-esteem. The third is certainty and structure. Here, people with these needs are afraid of change and uncertainty and will blame other groups for this. And then we have dominance. This is the desire to dominate other groups and thus feel superior to them. The percentage of people in the general population estimated to have these personality characteristics is relatively small and has been estimated at less than 1%. However, that still leaves thousands of men, and the research shows that they are almost entirely men, who have the potential to rise to power and cause widespread havoc and evil.